My friend called me crying. She saw my husband at a prenatal checkup with another woman. I laughed it off at first because Daniel had texted me an hour earlier saying he was stuck in back-to-back meetings all afternoon. But Sarah kept insisting she wasn't wrong, and I could hear real panic in her voice. I told her she was mistaken, hung up, and immediately called Daniel's office. His assistant Jenny answered, and when I asked for him, she said, "Oh, he took a personal day today, didn't he tell you?" My hand went to my stomach where our baby was growing 16 weeks along. I didn't even change out of my paint-stained clothes from working on the nursery. Just grabbed my keys and drove to Grove Medical Center. The receptionist looked uncomfortable when I described Daniel, but she pointed me toward exam room 4 at the end of the hall. I sat down in a chair directly across from the door, pulled out my phone, and waited. 30 minutes passed, and I was starting to think Sarah really had been wrong. Then the door opened, and Daniel walked out with his hand on a young blonde woman's back, the same way he always guided me through crowds. I hit record on my phone. She was crying softly, and he pulled her into a hug right there in the hallway. "We'll figure this out," he said loud enough for my phone to catch every word. "I promise, Liv, we'll figure this out together." Then his hand moved to her stomach, lingering there with the exact same tenderness he'd shown me when we first found out I was pregnant. She wasn't showing yet, but the way he touched her made me want to throw up. I kept recording as they walked to the reception desk. He pulled out his credit card to pay for her appointment, the same card linked to our joint account that I'd used that morning to buy nursery paint. He wrote down her next appointment date in his leather planner, the same planner where he kept track of my doctor's visits. Only when they turned to leave did he finally see me sitting there. All the color drained from his face in an instant. "Emma," he said so quietly, I almost didn't hear it. The blonde followed his gaze, and her eyes went wide when she saw my paint-stained shirt and my pregnant belly. I stood up, pocketed my phone, and walked out without saying a single word. He called after me, his footsteps quickening behind me, but I didn't turn around. I made it to my car and locked the doors just as he reached the window. He was banging on the glass saying, "Please let me explain," but I just started the engine. I drove straight to my sister Kate's apartment across town. She took one look at me and pulled me inside. I handed her my phone with the video already queued up. Her face got darker with every second. "What do you need?" she asked. "A lawyer," I said, "and I need help packing." Kate called her friend Diane, who's a divorce attorney. Within 2 hours, I was sitting in Diane's office signing papers. I opened a new bank account in my name only, transferred exactly half of our joint savings, closed our joint credit cards, and filed for divorce. No counseling, no second chances, just done. Diane asked if I wanted to stay in the house, but I said no. I couldn't raise my baby in a home built on lies. Then Kate drove me back to the house. We had maybe 2 hours before Daniel would come home. We packed methodically. My clothes, jewelry, books, the antique desk from my grandmother. Kate hesitated at the nursery door, but I told her to leave everything. The crib we'd assembled, the tiny clothes he'd picked out, the paint I'd spent all morning applying. I'd buy new things for my baby, untouched by his betrayal. We loaded everything into Kate's car and a rental truck. Then I went back inside one last time. I took down every photo of us from the walls, packed up all his stuff into garbage bags, and left them in the garage. The nursery I left completely empty, just yellow walls. On the kitchen counter, I spread out the divorce papers. Right on top, I placed a note that said, "Figure this out too," with a screenshot from the video. Him with his hand on her stomach. That night, I sat at Kate's apartment watching the Ring camera on my phone. At 6:15, Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. He walked through calling my name. I watched him move from room to room, his confusion growing. When he reached the nursery, he stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the empty space. Then he found the kitchen counter, and his knees buckled. He sat down on the floor right there and put his head in his hands. My phone started ringing. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again. By the 67th call, Kate said, "Answer or he'll show up here." On the 68th ring, I picked up. Before he could say anything, I asked, "How far along is she?" He started crying immediately, saying it was a mistake, that he loved me. "You can't fix this, Daniel," I said. "You were building 2 families at the same time, and I refused to raise my child in the wreckage." I hung up and blocked his number. Kate handed me tea and sat next to me. "You okay?" I put my hand on my belly. "I will be."